Turns out even a death certificate can't keep the federal government from giving you a handout. A new report tonight reveals that the federal government not only paid out more than $601 million to dead federal retirees over the last 5 years, but it continued to do so even after the erroneous payments were reported in 2005 and again in 2008. Here now to discuss are my freedom fighters, Fox Business anchor and my colleague Tracy Burns, Bridget Harrison, Montclair State University law professor, and Benjamin Powell, Independent Institute senior fellow and Suffolk University economics professor. Professor Harrison, to you first. Surely nobody could justify this kind of government excess, even the biggest of big government liberals, paying dead people for generations after their death.
Absolutely, Judge. And $601 million is $601 million that could have been spent for schools or for other programs that would have helped Americans. I think one of the things that we're seeing is that while Congress tends to tack on these earmarks on Christmas trees, we're not seeing that same fiscal responsibility where they're saying we need to disincentivize this kind of behavior.
Tracy, you and I talk about this stuff every day on various of our colleagues' shows. Does this surprise you that this was discovered just now?
No, unfortunately. I think the egregious part about it is it's getting worse. 70% increase over the last 5 years. $125 billion alone last year. It's getting worse and worse. Unfortunately, there's no one minding the shop down there, Judge.
Benjamin, is it true that no one profits by stopping this? The government has no incentive not to do it since it's addicted to spending money.
Well, of course, Judge. Unlike a private company, there's no residual claimant who benefits by eliminating waste. But let me try something out on you here, since everybody's all in agreement. How about this? Maybe this actually isn't such a bad thing. So it depends what model of government you have. If government's only going to provide certain goods and services and raise just enough tax revenue to do that, then clearly this is waste that could have gone back to taxpayers. But if they're going to take everything they can get from you anyway and spend it on what they want, maybe this waste, paying dead people, is better than bombing people in another country or throwing people in jail for an insane war on drugs.
There was an example,
we're actually better off wasting.
But there's an example of a son who received payments from his dead father for 37 years.
Well, that's fraud.
Until he died.
That's fraud. That's fraud, exactly.
The knowing acceptance of this, or the tricking the government into continuing the flow of cash, would obviously be a criminal event. But to Ben's suggestion, Bridget, is it the value set in government that we will take care of everybody all the time under all circumstances, whether it's the death of your loved one or whether it's Hurricane Irene in your basement? Is that what triggers this?
I think that this is really incompetency. If the government has this money to spend, as Ben is arguing, wouldn't they choose to spend it in a way, first off, that they can assure benefit being derived from it? We don't know what this gentleman was doing for this 30 years with this money. And I think that also what we're seeing is that this is really a failure on the part of the government to mind the store. They're not watching how this money
is government so big and so impersonal that the computers will just spew forth checks which can be cashed without any human observation of it?
Yes, absolutely. And to your point, well, they have the money. Should they do something good with it? They shouldn't have been buying $16 muffins with it either. They shouldn't be wasting it left and right. They shouldn't be taking jets to Europe on our dime. There's a lot of things they shouldn't be doing.
Because government has no competition and guaranteed customers called taxpayers.
Those aren't customers. Those are people whose money is taken from them. But yes.
Right, got it. Okay, it's a Twinkie takeover of your pocketbook. A new report out tonight reveals that your taxpayer dollars are subsidizing high fructose corn syrup and other additives found in America's most addictive junk food. How much money exactly? Enough to buy 19 Twinkies per taxpayer each year. Surprised at this? We pay farmers not to grow corn, and now we subsidize high fructose corn syrup, which is the worst part of corn.
That is the worst part of corn, but this is not surprising because what we know is that agribusiness, in particular corn manufacturers and the commodities associated with them, are some of the most effective lobbyists in the United States, receiving strong disproportionate subsidies. If you look at the amount of money going to people that grow other crops that people consume as they are grown, it is negligible compared to the corn.
But Ben, should the government be in the business of subsidizing any industry, especially when it comes to paying people not to produce what they produce best?
Whether it's junk food or healthy food, the government shouldn't be in the business of subsidizing it. Instead, we need market forces with consumers who have preferences for goods and services that dictate what gets produced for them. So we should end the subsidies, but at the same time, all of those busybodies, nannies, petty tyrants who constitute America's food and drink police need to go home too, so that we're not taxing these products. If I want to give my kid a Twinkie or a cake pop for breakfast, that's between me and him, not his Uncle Sam.
How can the same government, I'm speaking now of the First Lady, campaign so aggressively and well against obesity and that subsidize this junk that does nothing but make you fat, but which is you do have the free choice to consume or not to consume?
Well, it's all part of the hypocrisy, right? And part of me thinks she doesn't have a clue that all this stuff is being subsidized.
Well, you're probably right.
Right? But the other side of it is the government involvement. You stay out of my kitchen, stay out of my bedroom, stay out of my wallet, quite frankly. It has all gotten out of control, even though we are big Twinkie people in my house.
Professor Harrison, why should the government tell us what to eat? Why should the government make certain foods cheaper? Why can't we make these choices on our own? The law of supply and demand and free choice.
The reality is, Judge, the government has a vested interest. If you consume only Twinkies or if you only consume cakes or soda pops with a Medicare system and insurance, the government is going to wind up paying for your
because the government
obesity.
ends up paying the medical bills, the government can tell us what to put in our bodies?
No, but they certainly can incentivize healthy behavior.
Ben.
This is the entire danger of having government intervene in one sector of the economy. It sets up these dynamics of intervention. Because we socialize part of medicine, that means now we have to take over another area of your life. When you take over that, there's more unintended consequences. They have to take over that too. That's the danger in any government intervention.
So the government keeps seniors from going below the poverty line with Social Security. Tracy, can the same government tell them how to spend that money?
Now, unfortunately, I think that's where we are, right? That's what they're trying to do. You know, the problem is the unwinding of it, Judge. They're in so deep. The government is in everything so deep. How do you get them the heck out now, as opposed to making this grow bigger and bigger until we are truly socialism?
Are believers in the free market, a real free market, which doesn't exist anymore, like you and I are we engaged in a dream, in a pipe dream, or can this ever be unwound? Can we ever get to a point where the federal government stays within the confines of the Constitution and our free choices are neither subsidized nor regulated?
Well, that's a big ideological battle for us, Judge, because ultimately the logic of politics cuts against that. But we have seen it in the world before, and if the mass of the population holds those ideas like you and I hold, then they can be enforced.
Get
It's
rid
a
of the
long
tax
battle.
code. Get rid of the political book of favors.
What does a typical liberal Democrat think about this?
I think a
I
typical...
don't mean you're typical, but you know what I mean. What does a liberal Democrat say about this?
I think that a liberal Democrat says that this is testimony to the power that corporations have in swaying congressional policy. And I think that we see it with ethanol subsidies. I think that we see it in high fructose corn syrup subsidies. But I think the reality is that this is something that winds up costing taxpayers twice, at least.
Tracy, last word?
Get rid of the tax code, Judge. It is a political book of favors.
All right. Bridget Harrison, Benjamin Powell, Tracy Burns, it's a pleasure. Thanks for joining us, guys.